behind the ostensible corridors of power and should really rather be thought about, as we'll talk about, as ancient psychologists who understand exactly how to manipulate humanity. So at the real operational level of psyops, at the highest level, we have what I would call sorcerers of consciousness at work. And these are the people who are the true puppet masters. They've been around for since the dawn of human antiquity, many thousands of years. They understand everything there is to understand about the human psyche, the human ego, human motivations, human fears, and they know exactly the strings to pull to manipulate people to get what they want. So that's who's really running the ops at the highest levels. The military, will get involved if needed at the behest of the true ruling class, and they will position them accordingly. But let's make no mistake about it, psyops go way outside of just purely military operations, and at the highest levels, they are not, the shots of them are not called by the military. They're called by the occultists, they're called by the highest ranking members of the ruling class of our world. And when you really, scratch the surface of that, then you get into talking about intelligence operations and then the control of the media, because they obviously coordinate through those institutions. So members of intelligence agencies, military, and the mainstream media throughout the world then actually follow their orders that they're given by the dark occultist ruling class, and then at their different levels of operation, they conduct and implement the psyop both at a knowing level of that they fully are aware of what they are engaged in, and then many of them conduct the psyop at an unknowing level. They're just pawns in the game, they're just following orders. Often psyops are run as drills that then go live, and many people do not really know about their true operational level of involvement in the op. So you have a lot of different cross-coordination when it comes to who actually conducts the psyop, but make no mistake, at the highest levels, the occult sorcerers of our world are ultimately drawing up these plans and calling the shots about how they are to be implemented. The next question about the basics of psyops is when and where are they conducted? Are these limited operations in scope and scale? Are they done just in certain geographic areas, etc.? We have to ask those types of questions to really understand how psyops work. Psyops in general have been conducted upon human beings by the ruling class since the dawn of human history, and all over the world, in every geographic region of our planet. Whenever the rulers of any given geographic area consider it necessary to inject fear or confusion into the consciousness of those they rule, they will orchestrate psychological operations to tighten their grip on people's minds. Again, we have to understand the entirety of psychological warfare as constructed by the ruling class, who are occultists, to put fear into people's mind. Fear destroys consciousness. It puts us in shutdown mode, and it prevents us from thinking clearly and logically and understanding exactly what is being done to us. And the occult ruling class of our world are masters at this. They are masters at that chess game. They understand everything that they need to understand to be able to manipulate human beings. They've been at this work for tens of thousands of years, and as of right now, there's really no sign that the people are truly catching on. And again, that's why I'm making a presentation like this, to help people at a very basic level understand how these operations work, and actually, far more importantly, why they work. So let's move on. So how do psyops work? Psychological warfare operations work via the manipulation of human beings through their fear, ignorance, and naivete. Again, very important factors. If people don't go into a mindset of fear, if they remain aware, if they remain knowledgeable, and they remain streetwise to how these, complete con men and manipulators work, we're not going to fall victim to these operations, to these warfare operations that are done psychologically. But if we remain fearful, if we remain ignorant, we remain very naive and not streetwise, then the psyop's going to continue to work upon the human psyche, just as it has throughout all human history. Human consciousness is always driven by the love or fear polarity. These are the two ultimate primal universal forces that are always at work in the human domain of consciousness. The cosmic form of love is the polarity by which consciousness is expanded and improved. So many different spiritual teachers throughout the history of humanity have explained that it's only ever been a struggle between love and fear. And again, love isn't the Hollywood romanticized version of love. It's not just romantic love. It's not even just brotherly love or platonic love. It is universal love, love for truth, love for all consciousness, love for all sentient beings, love for what is right, love for principles, etc. That's the form of love we're talking about here that expands consciousness and improves human consciousness. And then fear, of course, is the polarity which shuts consciousness down and demoralizes and discourages human beings. Fear is the main weapon of choice in the psyop and those who are conducting it. Many forms of psyops prey upon human beings by exploiting their deep-seated fears and their desire to be kept safe, which there really is no such thing in the three-dimensional universe. We are physical beings. There are physical forces. There is no such thing as total safety. That is an illusion. And that illusion is preyed upon. It's reinforced and preyed upon by the occult ruling class. Other psyops work readily because of humanity's continued ignorance regarding human psychology and basic laws of nature. We don't know our own psyche. We don't understand our own deep-seated fears. We don't understand our own motivations, that which drives us. And we don't understand natural law. We don't understand universal principles. We don't understand universal morality. We don't understand the laws of cause and effect and the laws of consequence of behavior. And not understanding those things and being in pure ignorance of them, the bulk of humanity most certainly is. We're up against people who understand exactly how all of those things function. And when you have an extreme knowledge differential, it's going to develop into an extreme power differential every time. So one of the cruxes of this entire presentation is what we're going to talk about right now, and that's not just how they work, but why do they work and why do they continue to work. And until this dynamic changes, forget about being able to truly defend against psychological warfare. This is what humanity has to understand and then work to improve. And that's what the great work really is improving our state of consciousness so we cannot be fooled, so we can tell the difference between truth and falsehood. So ultimately, psyops can be successfully waged upon the human population because most human beings, sadly, have not developed to a level of consciousness in which they can properly discern truth and reality from falsehood and fantasy. Now, let me say that again because this is critical. This is the entire crux of why a psyop can work upon the human population. And it sounds even overly simplistic when you hear it. But, this is what people really have to learn to accept and to understand not just that it is true, but this is what our work is to do as people who do care about the truth, as people who do care about freedom, as people who do want the manipulation and the whole con game of psychological warfare to be put to rest and to be at an end, and not to be able to be successfully waged upon human beings to destroy our freedom and our rights and continue to put us into a state of bondage. We have to understand that this is what our work is to do to help to improve the consciousness of all human beings. That is what the great work is to do. So once again, psyops can only be successfully waged upon human beings because the vast majority of human beings, very unfortunately and sadly, haven't developed to a level of consciousness in which they are capable of actually discerning truth from falsehood. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And it's, again, I constantly go back to this as there's only really two ways that human beings can be fooled. There's only two ways that we suffer. We accept things that are not true, and then we act upon them, and then we suffer as a result. So we are wrong. We accept falsehood, and then we act upon it. That's the first way that we can be fooled, and the first way that human beings create self-inflicted suffering. And then the second way is we refuse to accept truth. We refuse to accept that which is true because of mental viruses that are implanted in our minds that are constantly telling us falsehood, and this isn't true, when in fact is true. So if we reject the acceptance of truth and we accept falsehood in our lives, our behaviors are always going to be able to be led astray because we don't have that level of discernment to determine what is in fact true and what is in fact false. And until humanity's aggregate level of consciousness improves in that way, psyops will continue to be a successful methodology to control human beings.